good morning. So sorry, Norm and Eric, the other two members of our community group, or the other editors, are not present today. So we took over. Yeah, it was difficult yesterday too. So, all right. Yeah, just a brief overview of our standardization efforts for XProc 3.0. So we skipped 2.0 as the fashion goes. And so XProc 3.0 will still be an XML pipeline language, focused on XML-centric workflows in publishing or other areas. XProc 1.0 has been a W3C standard for 8 years now, and there were efforts to release a version 2.0. The ideas have been presented here 2 years ago. It featured a non-XML syntax, which XML dinosaurs like myself didn't like. Reason is that we sometimes create pipelines dynamically with XSLT, and therefore we like to have an XML syntax, but I'll get back to the syntax thing later on. Well, the W3C working group was then closed in 2016 without XProc 2.0 released. And an informal W3C community group took over. And we had several meetings in Amsterdam and last year in Prague, London, and Aachen. And also this year, just Tuesday and Wednesday, here in here in Prague. And there are always about 15 people showing up, and 4 of us have volunteered as editors of the specs. And this is an overview what's in the new version of the spec. And the details will be on the next slides. So a new document model. A document is not longer required to be an XML document, but anything that the XProc processor chooses to represent a document with the internal structure, and a map of metadata properties. So there are 2 mandatory properties, content type, so the MIME type, and base URI, but you can attach any properties to a document. Currently, we see 4 major document type XML, text documents, just a text node within a document node, binary documents, and the special case of JSON. Yeah, there will be some, despite the XML syntax, which is a bit verbose, admittedly, there will be some shortcuts, so you can insert, you have text and attribute value templates, and the text value templates even take you a bit further, so you can really put some nodes in it with curly braces, and you can here use attribute value templates. So we are going full XDM 3.1, and everything can be typed and type checked. It used to be always strings or other atomic values. Now you can have the full, all the things that XDM 3.1 offers, like arrays and maps. Variables can hold documents. We see here the example where the document is read and then inserted in as input to a step. A a good thing is that you will be able to import function declarations from XSLT and XQuery using a new instruction p:\import functions, and you specify a namespace URI and then all the functions, and we are currently discussing whether we also want to import global variables. All these functions will be imported and will be available, thereby saving you some repetitive typing, reminding someone probably of XSLT 1.0 where you didn't have functions at all. So in XProc 1.0 we only had the XPath 2.0 functions and couldn't have user-defined functions. In 1.0, if you wanted to declare a variable in the middle of a pipeline, you had to create a new scope, for example, by p:\group, and then declare all kinds of outputs, and this was really verbose, and we have dropped this requirement, so you can declare variables everywhere. We dropped parameter ports, which were difficult to understand for some users and also difficult to implement for the implementers. We pass parameters to steps as maps now that we have XPath 3.1. And yeah, some other things like the p:\if. So there's no need anymore to declare in every branch of a p-choose the same outputs. If you have a p:\choose, you can, each branch of it, each p:\when can declare their own output ports, and they will be available for the whole construct, so they will just add. And in XProc 1.0, you really had to, if you had like 3 output ports in a p-choose, every branch had to declare them, and this was really sometimes annoying. Also in try-catch, there was the same problem, and now in addition we can have multiple catch clauses, so you have error codes as queue names, and you can have a catch clause for each error code or for wildcard of error codes, and do some cleanup stuff in a p finally, as seen also in other functional languages. Yeah, then one thing that was a bit hard for users, for new users to XProc, there was a distinction between input declarations and input connections. There still is this distinction, but now they have different names because it was quite confusing. Both of them used to be called p:\input, and they were different beasts. So this now becomes clearer and more in alignment with p:\option. P:\option is an option declaration, and p:\option is a connection where you pass this option to a step, and now we have also p:\input and p:\input. P namespaces is a thing that I learned about this Tuesday. I didn't know it, I didn't use it. The only space, Norm said the only spot where it was ever used was probably in the test suite. So we dropped it and use EQ names instead. So, and then there's other kinds of syntactic sugars. You can drop a p inline here. You can, instead of referring to a document by its URI, you can immediately give the URI in an href attribute. The connections with other steps, p:"pipe, can be abbreviated with a pipe attribute, where you have the port.
No. The port and then the step.
Yeah, the port and the step. And this used to be different in the spec, and if you have a look at the spec, I'll post the links in a minute. You'll notice that it used to be the other way around in the spec. And thanks to a comment by a user, my colleague Sebastian Bulka, where is he? Probably over there. Yeah, he asked in our session 2 days ago whether we don't want to do it this way, and Norm said, yeah, probably, and Eric was very much in favor, and everybody thought, yeah, this way looks more natural. So this thing is still a bit evolving, also based on user feedback. But the important information is we are listening, and yeah, maybe this still you can also, because you can pass multiple or establish multiple connections in a step. You could do that before. You can use these base-separated tokens to make a connection to other steps. We split up the specification. It used to be monolithic for 1.0. There are now at least 3 specifications, one for the core, one for the required steps, and many for the optional steps. So, for example, all the validation steps validate with RelaxNG, validate with XSD and Schematron. They have always been optional, and they will be bundled in a separate validation step library, and we'll have other libraries, for example, for image manipulations. They won't probably become standard, but standard library steps that also deal with binary files will be a generalized p-archive step, I think, for dealing with zip files, creating and extracting them. So these will be bundled and can develop at their own speed. We want to have the core spec ready this spring, so maybe next year we'll presenting the same slide with this spring, but we are very confident that it will come to an end this year, and have candidate releases of the core and step standard required step specs by June. And also the 2 active implementers. We don't know about other XProc 3.0 implementers right now, so we have Norm's XML Calabash and Achim's Morgana XProc. They are all developing new implementations, also new implementations with an abstract model for the pipelines, so you can easily ingest other syntaxes than XML and have a generic pipeline processor. It won't be streaming though on the inside, so this is a different problem. The XSLT 3.0 specificators have experienced that streaming has some difficulties with it, and we didn't want to deal with it at all right now. Maybe in the next version, using streaming XSLT processors, for example. And Eric Siegel is currently writing a book about XProc 3.0. He's impatiently waiting for the implementers to make available working processors, but Achim and Norm are working on this, and Eric's book will be out in summer. So you can have a look at the drafts. We will also post this presentation, or I'll post a link later. Achim will also put it on our GitHub repository. So these are the locations, but I'll send a link to this presentation right away on Twitter. And yeah, what we ask of you is feedback or for particularly use cases for dealing with non-XML documents, also for JSON documents, but also binary documents, and of course your questions or objections or just your cheers. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you.
So thank you. We have time for 1 or 2 questions before coffee. So Stephen. So I keep this mic for Achim.
So you're a CG now, a community group, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
So when you say last call, is that W3C last call, or is that sort of within the CG?
We pretend to be, no, we are not a W3C last call, but we pretend to be it.
Very good. Okay. And so
We try to adopt the procedures because we like the procedures.
Very good. And so presumably you're hoping to become a W3C standard, is that right?
Actually, we have not talked about it. Yes, the dream is yes. But the idea is to have something and then go back to the W3C and say, okay, we have this.
Okay.
Are you interested? Would you help us in making this a standard?
All right. So you haven't got a process organized for that yet?
No.
No. Okay. All right.
No,
Okay.
no.
Because actually there's not much support from the members of the W3C.
And there's no XML activity anymore.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for the update. I was completely out of sync. It seems to me that the 3.0 is really incompatible with 1.0. What is your compatibility story with the 1.0 pipelines that maybe have been written already?
I will not speak for Norm's processor. I speak for my processor. It will not process 1.0. Full stop. And the other way around, yes, it's not XProc 3.0 is not compatible with 1.0. But we can make 1.0 compatible with 3.0 using XSLT style sheets. This is the idea. We will provide XSLT style sheets taking 1.0 to 3.0, and we think that it will work in 95% of the time. So maybe we build it in the processor. If you call it a 1.0 pipeline, it would say, okay, I have to convert it, then it converts it. If it works, it starts as a 3.0 pipeline. If not, my dream is to give you hints what to change. Many things will go. We have this change from P input to P with input. This can be easily done with an XSLT style sheet. We have the change, getting rid of parameter ports, replacing with map, a little bit more difficult, but I think 95% will work because we expanded usability. We give you new opportunities, so the old are just renamed a bit. Yeah, but
so the answer is you have a story on compatibility.
we have a story. I just learned that not only Norm is aware of P namespace, but also Debbie knows P namespace. This will be a case where I have to change it by hand.
Okay, so thank you very much again. And now there is finally time for coffee, which